Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the City of Mesa Planning and Zoning Board public hearing for Wednesday, September 25th, 2019. Go ahead and call the meeting to order. The first item on our agenda is to take action on all consent agenda items. And I'd ask if you could be patient with us for just a minute or two. We've got a bunch of blue cards, and I want to make sure that we take the right items off the agenda. Are there any other blue cards being filled out right now, or do you think we have everything? Awesome. Okay, give us just a few minutes, please. Oh, are you going to volunteer to help me, sir?
Yes, I am.
Excellent. Okay, so there's...
These already ordered.
Looks like they are organized. So, item 3A, it looks like 00434 is pulled off. Yep. Yes, and then 00477 is off. Okay, so it looks like, yeah, it looks like everything is coming off consent except for item C3. Yeah, 3C. So we will be pulling all of those other items off, and we'll be talking about them today. So Board Member Crockett, could you please read the consent agenda?
Madam Chair, I would move approval of agenda item 2A, which is the minutes from the September 11, 2019 study session and regular public hearing. And I would move agenda item 3C, which is zoning case ZON 19-00518 in District 6 within the 9100 block of East Guadalupe Road on south side, located west of Ellsworth Road on the south side of Guadalupe Road. This is a site plan review. The recommendation from staff is approval with conditions. And that is the consent agenda.
Thank you, Board Member Crockett. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I would move that we approve the consent agenda as written for the record.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second? Okay. Everybody vote, please. Okay. The consent agenda passes. So we'll go ahead and move on to the regular hearing. The first item is item 3A, case ZON 19-00434 in District 3, within the 2600 block of West Guadalupe Road and within the 2800 block of South Carriage Lane. This is located east of the 101 Price Freeway on the south side of Guadalupe Road on approximately 1.2 acres. This is a site plan review and special use permit request to allow for the development of a convenience store with a drive-through and associated fuel station. The staff planner is Wahid Alam. There you are. Could you give us a presentation, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair and member of the board. As you have mentioned, this is the case like ZON 19-00434. It's a site plan review and a special use permit for a convenience store and a related full canopy and a drive-through associated with it. It's a small site, 1.2 acres at the southeast corner of Carriage Lane and Guadalupe Road. Currently, there is 2 buildings used for office. It's part of a kind of a group center with shopping and office. Currently, it is Zone LC, limited commercial. So that's kind of the location. It's very close to the freeway, and it's at the southeast corner of Carriage Lane and Guadalupe. That's the site plan. They're proposing a gas canopy with 12 stall and a convenience store with 16 parking stall. And the site plan uses almost the existing driveway access, so there is no additional one done. Guadalupe doesn't even change. Carriage Lane existing driveway access is moved further south. This is the general plan, which says neighborhood suburban in this area. So the proposed land use is compatible with the general plan. This is the citizens' participation that the applicant has performed. They have done more than the requirement. It's like they have done a neighborhood meeting on August 27th. And staff has received concern also, and I believe the applicant also received. So Just to summarize, there was mainly 3 points, the existing traffic situation in that area. Of course, the concern is with the approval of the gas station, the more potential traffic impact, and the other one was environmental contamination during the demolition process. So I understand the applicant is here, can address some of those detailed communication. And also in the audience, we have our City of Mesa own traffic engineer. So she would be available to answer if we have any questions. In summary, this zoning case of site plan review and special use permit meets our general plan and the Mesa zoning ordinance, and that's why staff's recommendation is approval with conditions. I'll be happy to answer any questions if you have.
Thank you, Wahid. Does anyone have any questions for staff at this point? No. Okay. Would the applicant like to give us a presentation?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members of the Commission, Wendy Riddell with the law firm Barry Riddell, 6750 East Camelback. My pleasure to be here this afternoon on behalf of Thompson Thrift. Hoping you guys can pull up this presentation. There we go, perfect. So as I think you know, the site is right off the 101 freeway across a major arterial, Guadalupe and Carriage Lane. It is already within an established commercial center, and we are maintaining the existing ingress and egress locations both on Carriage Lane as we are on Guadalupe as well. So we are proposing a drive-through coffee shop, convenience mart, and fuel station. It's important to note that the drive-through here is actually permitted by right. The reason I'm before you folks, not only, of course, for the site plan, but also for the fuel station and convenience mart coupled together. So that is what requires us to have a special use permit. And what we're proposing today is actually a new concept here for Arizona called Big B Coffee. It comes out of the Midwest. It's been very popular there, where they have combined it with fuel stations, and we're hoping that Mesa would be the first location where it would come here to the valley. This is to give you an idea. I know there was some discussion and some general unhappiness about the first round of elevations. Frankly, we thought those comments were fair. We hope we've done a better job addressing them. We think we have with a newer, kind of more contemporary design like you see here. We certainly think that that is a significant improvement over the 1980s office complex that exists there today. It is somewhat dilapidated. The current tenants are on month-to-month leases, and it has quite a few vacancies today. So again, here's just kind of a side-by-side proposal where you see the convenience mart compared to the existing context to the medical, or sort of the office buildings, pardon me. So a special use permit, as this commission knows very well, is about the criteria. I'd like to just quickly run through why we meet each of the criteria, why staff is recommending approval. The first is to show that we are consistent with the policies of the general plan. And as staff has pointed out to you, we are consistent with the general plan character, the area of a neighborhood village, the idea that people can shop, that meet their regular shopping needs within their own surrounding neighborhood, which is precisely the purpose here. Also, we look at the location size and operating characteristics of the proposed project to make sure they're consistent with the purposes of the district. And again, here we're located along a freeway corridor. It's a 1.2 acre site. It's consistent with the size of a typical fuel station. In fact, we were kind of debating, it's sort of underbuilt. You could actually put more here if you were not to do a fuel with perhaps 2 restaurants or 2 fast foods potentially even. We're maintaining the existing driveway configurations, and the closest residence to us is actually over 195 feet away across from that major arterial. The second is that the building conforms to the required, it's appropriate for the site's size, location, and properties. Again, the staff report notes the building conforms to the required setback and dimensional standards within the LC district. Finally, that the proposed project will not be injurious or detrimental to the adjacent properties, surrounding properties in the area. Pardon me. And again, we're proposing here to activate a somewhat dated complex. We're pretty far away from the closest residence. We're wrapped on 3 sides by commercial. And the majority of traffic that we're capturing here is a use that's already along Guadalupe, capturing the traffic along Guadalupe Road, not new trips. And finally, that there's adequate public services, public facilities, public infrastructure available, again, located signalized intersection with speed camera along a 4-lane arterial near a major freeway intersection. It's this ideal location for this type of community serving commercial. So that gets us through the SUP criteria and demonstrates how we meet them. I will tell you, we took our neighborhood outreach here very seriously. We began it last July, talking with some of the neighbors. Having discussions with their neighborhood group, we noticed over 1,000 feet of the property owners in the surrounding area. We had an open house back in August, and we've continued to have ongoing calls with the community and emails with the community as well. The primary issue that we have heard about is traffic and the concern about traffic. I will tell you the council office is pretty familiar with that complaint here, so much so that they actually installed, as a result of an accident that took place in 2018, they installed some cameras. And in this intersection, I will tell you that particular accident did involve someone that was under the influence, so it was not a result necessarily of the surrounding situation, more just bad judgment. And that, as a result, has really given some particular attention to this roadway. One of the things when we looked at this roadway is we did notice that there was kind of an anomaly, and I'm not a traffic engineer. We have our traffic engineer here, and she could certainly speak to this better. But you can see where our site is in the lower right-hand corner, the blue portion. And then you see the ADOT portion of the freeway. And you note that at the ADOT portion, there's 3 lanes. There's very clear, marked 3 lanes. And then you get to the Mesa portion, and there's 2 lanes. There's kind of a wonky gap, and then there's a right turn lane. So I could certainly see, again, not a traffic engineer, not trying to do an impression of one, but I could certainly see where that would create confusion, driver confusion, and create a problem. So this is something we did bring to the attention of City of Mesa staff, and this is kind of a proposal, a proposed solution. They are going to evaluate this internally. They're open to considering it. Certainly it would require some level of cooperation from ADOT as well. But we think this is kind of unrelated to our project, but we think this is a way our project can help improve kind of the surrounding situation and ultimately improve the traffic condition. So with that, respectfully request your approval. We're in agreement with any stipulations, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions for the applicant right now? No? So we do have some blue cards, and I assume you would like to have the opportunity to come back
Yes,
after the
please.
public comments and address those, and we're happy to do that.
Great.
Are you wanting to speak? Are you okay?
No, I'm just-
Okay, I just want to make sure Board Member Boyle is good. Okay, we'll invite you back up
Thank
after
you.
the public comment section. Thank you. So I'll go ahead and open it up for public comment, and I'll just read these cards in the order that I have them here. You'll each have to come up and state your name and address for the record, and you'll get 3 minutes. And there's a timer on the podium there, so you'll have to kind of help monitor yourself, self-monitor your time there, but we'll also give you a reminder at 3. So the first card I have is for Rich Williams, who is opposed to this item and would like to speak. Thank you, sir.
Hello, Rich Williams, 2624 West Naranja. I'm on the north side. I've been a 20-year resident of the area. My opposition primarily is threefold. First is in the community that's there. I define the area as a calm community. The activity that does occur in an already established business is not a transit business activity. People go there, they're there for 30 minutes, whatever length of time. They're certainly not there 5 to 8 minutes. And in that community of calmness, I believe this gas station creates, we'll say, a buzziness within that can just disrupt the community calm. And I don't see that helps the community, offsets that disruption. That's part one. Part two is prior to my 20 years in here, I lived in Portland for 20 years. One of the contributing negative factors for Portland is the homeless situation. We all see the ability for homeless activity to point itself towards off-ramps. Fortunately, we haven't seen it much, but in Portland, one of the key components that made that even greater was location of off-ramps and gas stations. So again, touch points for the patronage of the homeless increases by that combination. This is rife for that potential. Our area has had a couple instances with homeless people walk in. I've had to call 911 when they tried to open my front door. So it's not like it's not around. It's around. It only gets better. To me, this creates a situation that will only increase that potential. Certainly things can be done to address that, loitering and things like that, signs, whatever. I sent an email yesterday belatedly to him referencing these. The last point is certainly the traffic. I think there are possibilities. I'm pretty sure if it's gone this far, this is already going to go through. So I'm like, just want to get my 2 bits in. So later on, I have something, if anything goes wrong, I can grumble and say, well, I said. So my point is that I think Guadalupe itself, the traffic comes off the freeway. That's why we had to increase the signage on the lights heading east so that people just miss it and they go right through that line. People that do make the turns into that business already usually get there late, slam the brakes, and then turn. That's with the current people that know where they're going. Those that go, oh, look, a gas station, can only, to me, increase that possibility of backing up or causing even more accidents at that entrance. So in my letter yesterday, I said, well, maybe they could do a turn lane into the gas station that will be there, because I'm pretty sure it's going to be there. My time is up.
Well, thank you for recognizing that.
There's more, but if
I
somebody
think
wants
we'll
to
be
yield
talking
some
about
time.
the traffic and some other things. I think we should be able to address your comments, and the applicant will also be back up to address. Thank you, Mr. Williams. The second one is Henry Stein. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I own the address 2826 South Carriage Lane in Mesa. I own the office building directly west of the proposed development. Have owned it approximately 35 years, and I'm keenly interested in the development that is being proposed here. Based upon what I understand right now, I have very few, if any, substantive objections to the development. I think it's a net positive, and I am in favor. However, 4 relatively minor concerns. Number one, I noticed a difference between what the city planner, I believe Mr. Waheed, and the counsel for the applicant mentioned concerning egress off Carriage Lane. I believe Mr. Waheed said the egress will be adjusted southward, and the applicant indicated it will be unchanged. I'd like to know what the difference may be, as that may impact access to my building. Second, there are mature trees on the Carriage Lane side of the existing development. I have looked at the landscape plan, and frankly, I'm a lawyer but not a landscape architect, and I can make very little determination as to what all this means, but I have an interest in maintaining the current mature trees. Third point is, has there been consideration given to noise, dust, and vibration mitigation during the course and scope of construction? That may very well have an adverse impact on my property, and I think that ought to at least be considered. The final point, and again, looking at the very confusing, although I'm sure it's well done, landscape plan, there's an existing, I think it is referred to as a buffer wall. That wall has been in place for at least 35 years. It is showing significant signs of deterioration, including cracks at the mortar joints. The stucco is in deteriorated. The paint is in deteriorated condition, in my judgment. And it would seem to me that as a condition of approval, those items, those defects, as I mentioned, ought to be addressed by the developer to make the perimeter of the development more aesthetically pleasing. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate it. The next card is Warren Hing.
Good afternoon. Warren Elting, 2533 West Anza Avenue, Mesa, Arizona, 85202. I attended the 27th of August meeting with Thompson Thrift and came away from it rather surprised. First of all, I was told that all of the tenants had been apprised of what was planned, and they all overwhelmingly approved this. On this past Saturday, and again on Monday and Tuesday, I walked around Carriage Lane Plaza and talked to the different tenants that are there. Some in the 2 buildings that are to be torn down, but most of them in the other building, other facilities. Not one of them had been apprised of this. So obviously Thompson Thrift lied to me, which upsets me greatly. Not only weren't they told, but when I discussed this with them, they all absolutely opposed the whole idea. Nobody wants a gas station there. We already have a convenience store across the street on Carriage Lane, and we have a gas station and a convenience store a mile to the east, and a gas station and a convenience store a mile to the west. We need a gas station and a convenience store, not at all. I think that Thompson Thrift has been totally dishonest, and I would not trust them at all. The other thing that upsets me greatly is the 2 office buildings there. I asked about that, what plans they had for displacing those people, and they said, oh, they're on month to month, they're just gone. There are about, I would say, 25 different businesses in those 2 buildings. They may be on month to month, but they don't know where they're going, and they don't have any facilities for getting away and finding new facilities. So I think that this cavalier attitude that Thompson Thrift has, oh, we don't care, that upsets me. Thank you.
Thank you. Gladys Elting?
Gladys Elting, 2533 West Anza Avenue, Mesa. I've lived in Carriage Lane for 42 years. Since 1977, when we moved there, we've seen a lot of changes. I've watched Carriage Lane Plaza grow. I've watched it grow from infancy to old age, and there is no denying that the plaza could use a facelift. The proposal to tear down the 2 buildings on the west and put in a convenience store with a drive-through coffee shop and a gas station does not seem like the appropriate thing to do. First, there's already a convenience store directly across the street. And as my husband said, there's a gas station a mile to the east and a mile to the west, as well as other shopping. Most importantly, there's already a traffic problem in the area of Guadalupe and Carriage Lane. The installation of a gas station that would generate 24/7 traffic is only going to make a bad situation worse. It has improved with the traffic light, but it's not, it's bad. I walk by and drive by the area regularly. I've watched cars heading east to make the turn into Carriage Lane Plaza, and they make it on the wrong side of the pillar there because of one of the issues that's already been mentioned. The entrance is narrow, there's no turn lane, and they swing around because of the positioning of the pillar. So cars turning in the wrong lane with the addition of a gas station is only going to exacerbate the traffic situation there now. And then there's always the environmental issue with gas station and the potential for problems down the road. Fortunately, I'm retired and I can attend this meeting. This is not true for most of my neighbors who have voiced opposition to the proposal. I know these buildings have been on the market for years. However, I am strongly opposed to the proposed usage of the property and the less than upfront and honest actions of the developer so far. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we don't have any more blue cards, so I'm going to close the public comment section of the hearing, but I'd like to invite the applicant to come back up. And I've tried to take good notes, but I'm sure you have too, but I think
We're about to find
between
out.
all of us, hopefully we'll address all the neighbor concerns.
That would be great. If I could, to start with this gentleman in particular, the driveway, I am told we're actually moving it a few feet, so I do stand corrected, but certainly we can't do anything that would impede your access legally. Certainly I can't do that. Regarding the walls, we will be replacing all of the walls, so that's going to be an improvement to the center. And then regarding the mature trees, that one's a little bit more challenging because the city will not allow us to keep grass out there. So we're actually required to redo the landscape palette out there, but we're happy to work with you on that, meet with you and get your input and make sure, I mean,
There was not grass on the Carriage Lane side, I don't believe. It is more of a granite or a crushed stone that's in that area. There's not a grass area.
I may be thinking of the Guadalupe side,
Yeah,
but
maybe I remember.
the punchline would be we're happy to work with you and see what can be done to make sure it's an attractive center. That's not an issue at all. Let's see, running down my notes regarding quiet. I mean, this is a commercial center. Other commercial uses are permitted here by right. I think a gas station can be run in a way that's very compatible, particularly with the surrounding commercial and considering the distance of the existing residential. The problem of homelessness, I mean, it frankly is a horrible problem that plagues a lot of these communities. I would posture that having a lit active use here at this site is actually a better deterrent for that type of problem than the condition today, where you do have buildings, you do have lots of places that people could hide or could hang out. So I would suggest to you respectfully that we're actually causing an improvement. There was the suggestion at one point of the right turn lane. It just simply isn't warranted. You're welcome to check with your own traffic engineer, but and ours as well. It's simply the counts don't warrant, don't justify, and they typically don't want you to put them in unless you meet those thresholds. I think I made it down my list, but if there's anything I missed, you're certainly welcome to ask. Other than that, I respectfully request your approval.
Did you have any comments on environmental, the question that came?
Certainly, and I actually think the gentleman brought up during the construction, and
Right,
certainly
yes.
there's pretty intense regulations that we're required to beat, both through Maricopa County as well as the city of Mesa during construction in terms of how we manage dust, how we stage that, and how we ensure that we don't become a nuisance to our neighbors. Regarding the environmental regulations, regarding gas stations, they're frankly even more onerous than what you would find during construction to ensure both a federal, state, and local level that we do not create any type of environmental issue.
Thank you. Yes.
There you go. I think one of the other comments, and maybe you can address this, is the notification of the tenants in the building. I think that was one of the gentleman's comments, that the people he talked to, he didn't feel like they were notified. I'm sure you guys have records of everybody you talked to, and you said your outreach was extensive. So
Yes.
can you talk about that a little?
I can. I will tell you, we were just quickly kibitzing when that question was raised. None of us recall ever telling him that we had been in communication with all of the tenants. I certainly would never have suggested that we have all of their support. The tenants that are in the existing building have known for quite some time that property is on the market. They typically get a discounted rate because they're willing to go at a month-to-month condition, and that's why they're there. They're not in the 20s, by the way. I'm told they're kind of in the teens in terms of the month-to-month tenants that are there. In our notification, we've notified all the property owners. I don't know that we actually can get to the tenants specifically, so I would never have claimed to have noticed all of them. So.
Board Member Crockett?
I did have a question, maybe for the city's traffic engineer. There's been some questions about the turn lanes, and about coming off the freeway and merging the 3 into 2. I'd just like to know for the benefit of myself and those in attendance, if we've looked at it, and if so, what we've concluded.
Okay. No, I was going to say, we probably all have questions for you. Go ahead, you're here. We'll just kind of focus on traffic engineering. Thank you.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sabine Ellis, and I'm the city traffic engineer. There was a concern raised about the eastbound through traffic, or northbound coming off the ramp going eastbound. I just got notified yesterday, and we were discussing some striping layouts that could help with the situation. It is ADOT right-of-way, as you may have seen earlier on the map, so I have suggested to discuss it internally and also get with ADOT. I meet with them regularly to see what we can do to alleviate the issue. But it's the first time I'd heard of it. But what we've seen, again, we've seen a striping layout that could work, and we can certainly review that and see what can be implemented and when.
So you would work in conjunction with ADOT since you're right away abuts each other. So you have to get their okay, and they have to coordinate with you as well. It's a joint effort, I would imagine.
Exactly. We could do the work, but they would have to be in agreement if we did the work, and it needs to be an agreement between both parties, so we can figure that out as we go along. But again, we have a good relationship. Obviously, we have several interchanges, and I meet with them on a monthly basis, so it won't be a problem to bring that up. I just didn't have a chance to reach out to them
No, that's
since I just heard of that yesterday.
Do you think that the proposed use will significantly impact the existing traffic problems in the area?
I can tell you that Guadalupe Road is not at capacity. We still have quite a few options to add traffic to it without degrading the traffic on Guadalupe itself. We have 25,000 vehicles a day right now, and it can go up to 35 and still carry that. Now, that's on the high end, obviously, but my point is we still have capacity there. There's no doubt that during peak hours, just like in other locations, there is traffic that will back up, especially close to the freeway. And that the gas station will add trips, but a lot of those trips, the majority of them will be people that are living in the area driving through anyway. I wouldn't expect that somebody on the freeway would necessarily come off the freeway just to go to the gas station and go back. So it's most likely people that are passing through, see the gas station, or would like a coffee or buy something at a convenience store and that stop by. So from a traffic perspective, I don't see an issue. We will, just like we have done in other locations, when a new development comes in, we can go in and review traffic volumes and look at the traffic signal, how it operates, because that may change a little bit. You may have more people coming out of Carriage Lane, getting to the freeway, or coming to the, turning right onto Carriage Lane. And again, we can adjust traffic signal timing based on these new needs. And it's been on our radar, so definitely it's earmarked for further review. Not necessarily because of the development, just because of attention it has been getting. As you've probably heard before, we added the photo enforcement that catches speeders as well as red light runners going to the freeway. We made the signal more visible with what's called back plates, meaning that it stands out a little more from the other signal at the interchange, because they are so close, and we understood that, because they're not far from each other, it might be difficult to distinguish between the freeway signal as well as this one. We did coordinate with Tempe about the traffic signal timing, that works together. So we are doing our best we can with what we have at hand. The fact of the matter is that the traffic signal is too close to the interchange than what we would see nowadays. But the traffic signal was there before the interchange, so that's how this whole situation came about. It is what it is. We're not going to take it out. That was one of the discussions. Technically, it would have to be farther to the east. It is there today, and again, we have constant attention on it, and I feel with the cameras that we have there now, it does improve. It does create more attention to drivers to slow down as well as not run the red light. And again, we are paying attention to it.
Thank you so much. Does anyone ever have any other questions for our traffic engineer before she? Yep.
I have a question too. In the previous meeting, we talked a little bit about stacking and some of the challenges that comes with that. Do you guys look at that as well in the traffic thing? And as I'm looking at this, I'm thinking, if this is successful as a Dutch Brothers or something like that, it seems to me Carriage Lane would start becoming the stacking if it's out of capacity, and I don't see a much better solution to that. Is that something that you guys spend a lot of time thinking about, or is that more zoning?
For bigger developments, from my perspective, we require a traffic study, but we're talking much, much larger scale. Eastmark, just a sort of term, big. For these smaller ones, we make sure that it complies with the general plan, it complies with the zoning. So specifically, stacking was not looked at for this site. When we review a site plan, we make sure that we have some rules in place that, for instance, a parking stall can't be really close to a driveway so that somebody coming off of the road doesn't interfere with somebody trying to park. From that perspective, but as far as the specific development, how much stacking a Dutch Brothers versus maybe another store or another coffee shop would have. We don't specifically look at that.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you. We all appreciate you being here.
And I'll still be here if you need anything.
Thank you. We might need you again. Would the applicant like to come back up? Any questions aside from traffic or the site plan or anything from anyone else for the applicant? Any questions for staff? I think we're good for now.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. All right, any discussion, or is anyone ready to make a motion on this item?
I've got a few things I'm just curious about. One is the sort of the larger view. This is the southwest corner entry to the city. So when you're coming from Chandler or from that part of Tempe, this is Mesa to you. And I'm debating, I'm like, well, if there's two convenience stores, one after another, do people think, Mesa, it's so convenient. This is really great. I'm just wondering about that, or even this new thing, a gas station with a drive-through. I don't know that I've been to one before, but I kind of want to go to one. Because typically you get your gas and then you have to walk in the store to get whatever. So part of me is like, I don't know. And that's where the stacking thing comes up. I'm like, is this going to have tons more traffic than a typical Dutch Brothers or one like that? Or is it going to have less? I don't know. That's an interesting question. And because it's such a new thing, I'm interested in it. And I guess maybe there was a question to ask the applicant there. If they've been doing these in other cities, what sort of stacking have they seen in their other?
Did you want to invite her back up
Maybe
to
that
answer
would
that
be-
question, if you wouldn't mind?
Yeah, I would. I'd love to know, because this is a product that exists out in the
It
east
is.
somewhere that you've done, or somewhere else?
Actually, in the Midwest.
Midwest?
So they have shown that this stacking has been very sufficient for their needs. We do face this in a lot of communities, the Dutch Brothers phenomenon, where it really is, my own children are examples, it's a destination. People seek them out, and you have long lines of people. I'm sure Big B Coffee, aspires to that, but that has not proven to be the same issue here. So we think the stacking we're proposing is sufficient.
Okay.
Thank you.
The other one that I think of is, my friends who are experiencing homelessness, often when they need some help, they say, when they're done, can you drop me off at a gas station? So I think there is a certain attraction to them. But I also agree that having it lit well at night may offset that somewhat. So those are the sorts of things I'm
You're pondering, you're thinking about.
pondering as we decide the right
Yeah.
step for this.
It's an allowed use, but I know the special use permit gives us an extra, layer of review responsibility. It does meet the criteria for a special use permit. The good neighbor policy, could you touch on that just a little bit, just to let us know what does that entail for a convenience store with the fuel sales?
I mean, they provided us the project narrative. That's how specifically I don't have, or it's not coming into my mind right now. But yes, they were supposed to tell us, and that's what they provided us, like the operation time, and then the enough parking, and then it's not a car wash that the sound is disturbing the neighbors, those kind of things mostly we do. We want to make sure the dryer is on the other side, not abutting the residential. So this one did not have that kind of issue because this is in the middle of an existing shopping center almost.
Right. And they're bringing, they have to become in compliance with any of the current development standards, like with landscaping and everything. So, I think the fact that our traffic engineer is communicating with ADOT on these larger, traffic issues is a good thing. But I don't know myself if I think this particular use will add to the traffic that they're already seeing. That's just my 2 cents.
Right, well, I guess, and I'll just express my opinion. I believe, this center has been in existence at least 35 years, if not longer. That Circle K has been there for that same amount of time. I think the to me, the developer has done extensive lengths, at least from what we saw initially for the submittal to what we saw down in the study session. I think they've really made some progress in their design and their style. I don't know that, to me, when the traffic engineer said there was at least a 10,000 car per day cap, or per trip or whatever, cap, and we're only at what was it, 35, more at 25 or something. Anyway, there's a 10,000 car difference. So to me, that, I believe, especially since the lanes that they're taking to try to make sure that it's safer for people to use, transitioning from 3 lanes to 2 lanes. I think this is not right on the corner. I know it's affected by it because it's very close to that intersection, but I think that, to me, the developer has gone to great lengths. So I personally don't have any problem supporting the request for this. I believe that it meets all the criteria, the special use permit, it meets the special use permit criteria, and I believe the developer is trying to make it a nice project. Opposed, I mean, like I said, I'm very familiar with that area. It's been probably longer than that, longer than 35 years, closer to 40 probably. I'm not that old, but I remember it that long ago. But anyway, that's my opinion.
Well, thank you. Any other comments or motion?
This is out of order. I just had one thing related to traffic.
Actually, we can't take, I've already closed the public section, public comment section. Sorry. Go ahead.
Can I go ahead and make a motion then? I would make a motion that we approve ZON 19-00434, District 3, within the 2,600 blocks of West Guadalupe Road on the south side, and within the 2,800 block of South Carriage Lane on the east side, located east of the 101 Price Freeway and on the south side of Guadalupe Road, a site plan review and a special use permit. I would recommend that we recommend approval with conditions.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion? Second. Okay, everyone please vote. Mine is not working. There we go. Okay, the motion passes. Thank you. We will move on to the next item, which is item 3B. Case ZON 19-00477 in District 4, within the 0 to 100 blocks of East Pepper Place, the 0 to 100 block of East Main Street, and the 0 to 100 blocks of East First Street, the 0 to 100 blocks of North Center Street, and the 0 to 100 block of North Centennial Way. This is located North Main Street and east of Center Street on approximately 4.79 acres. This is a site plan review request to allow the development of a university campus and public plaza. And the staff planner is Mr. Ellsworth.
Where'd it go? So, excuse me for a second. Technical difficulty. Madam Chair, members of the board, this is a zoning case ZON 19-477. This is a 5-acre site located in the center of town. This site is associated with two associated developments. There is, it's right out the back door. Yeah. North and south side of Pepper. On the north side of Pepper is the proposal for a 3-story, approximately 128,000 square foot university campus building for ASU. South of Pepper will be a city project for urban plaza. Each of those in association constitute an improvement for the downtown center, keeping in concert with the general plan and the central Main Street plan for the area. The existing zoning on the site is downtown core. Within the downtown core zoning, the specific site standards are determined through site plan review. Therefore, the site plan that you're reviewing today sets those standards. And the building as it sits on the site is approximately 19 feet north of the curb at Pepper, and it's east of, and I can't see the dimension, but it's east of Centennial also. The way it's situated on the site, the front of that building faces south with a service lane between these chambers and the IT building next door, and the backs of those buildings to serve the back ends of those production studios that are part of that building. As part of that, they are going to make modifications to the existing or to the Old City Library, which has been designated a historic landmark. There is a condition of approval, as we discussed in the study session, regarding modifications to that building requiring some type of review through our historic preservation process. Also part of this review is the request for the proposed parking. The proposed parking for this site is designated, or is proposed to be off-site. The downtown zoning districts allow for the required parking to be accommodated off-site in municipal and shared parking locations throughout the downtown area. The indications are that we'll be able to absorb the parking for this throughout the downtown area in our existing parking locations. There was some discussion, I guess I can wait before you have that discussion, about a modification to that condition of approval. I know Dr. Apia has been working on some of those modifications.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, our proposed recommendation for that condition, I will read into the records. We'll say, prior to approval of the certificate of appropriateness to remove the wavy canopies, the historic preservation officer, and my PC just ran out of battery, but I can pull that up just a minute. Okay. Prior to approval of the certificate of appropriateness to remove the wavy canopies, the historic preservation officer shall solicit input or advice from the Historic Preservation Board regarding the removal or repurpose of the use of the canopy through a regular public hearing meeting of the Historic Preservation Board. So that's our recommendation.
As far as that condition of approval, also I wanted to reiterate, the condition of approval as it was written is just reiterating the code requirements from the zoning code as well as the requirement from the zoning case that established the historic landmark. So it's not granting a different or special privilege, it's just reiterating what the code would already require for that.
And so there's no change from the discussion that we had downstairs to today. The only thing would be the input from the board. I think that's the only change that you have in there.
Yes, that is.
Yeah. I still have an issue with that condition of approval. And maybe I'm the only one that has that issue, but I feel like there's no change to it, whether it's input from the board or approved by the board. I know you said you read it from the zoning ordinance, but I still feel like this is a public process. It was a public process when it was initiated, and I feel like the city needs to go through the same steps that any developer needs to. And I feel like they need to follow those same criteria. I don't know that we would, and maybe we would approve something for any developer, just kind of more of a trust us type of an opinion. And I don't feel like that's right for the city to do that. I think it should go through the same process. Anybody should have to, but that's my opinion.
It seems, though, I think that staff feels that their hands are tied with regard to the language of the zoning ordinance. So is it prohibiting you from taking that?
Madam Chair, members of the board, so I've had this extensive discussion before the public hearing with our legal department. Approving a condition that will override the zoning ordinance, that's not something that, in terms of this site plan review, you cannot put a condition that will override requirements of the zoning ordinance. And the zoning ordinance is specific that for certificate of appropriateness, that will be reviewed and approved by the historic preservation officer. But through that dialogue, I think the recommendation was at least present that to the historic preservation board for public input, their input and advice. And in addition, like I said during the study session, this is something that Jeff McVeigh and the team also did present all the alterations, including removing the canopies, to the Historic Preservation Board. And the Historic Preservation Board's recommendation was so long as they find a way to repurpose the canopies, they did not express any objection to altering the canopy as well.
I mean, I think that's as good as we can get, and just, we know Mr. McVeigh, and he's hearing us loud and clear, and so is our director, what our concerns are. So we hope you really are listening very carefully but thank you for coming up with that. I think that's a good solution. Any other comments?
I'm sort of with Board Member Allen. This is, saying, well, the city has one set of rules and developers have a different set of rules is concerning for two reasons. One, a developer has they have a bottom line that they have to do. This is a city project that's paid for by taxpayer money. It's almost, oh, well, none of the rules apply and the rules of the market also don't apply. So I feel that same discomfort there with that element, among others.
Madam Chair, members of the board, just for the record, I may have missed the communication, but whether it's a developer or the city, they will all be required to follow the zoning ordinance, and that's a discussion here. So whenever it's either a private developer or the city, they are required to follow the historic preservation ordinance, and that's exactly what our recommendation is.
Okay, thank you. Oh, Board Member Crockett?
And I guess I'll weigh in. I understand the concerns, and I agree with the concerns that have been stated, but it appears that based on the legal advice we're getting, as communicated by the director, I think we need to move forward and review the site plan as a site plan. And so I think I'm probably prepared to support this with the recognition of the concerns and the message that's been communicated regarding our views on this.
Thank you, Board Member Crockett. All right, well, we'll entertain a motion. Oh, I'm so sorry. We do have a card here from Joni Schultz, so I apologize. I'll open the meeting up to the public. If you could just state your name and address for the record, please, and we'll give you 3 minutes to state your concern.
My name is Joni Stultz, 2763 West Ironwood Drive in Chandler. And I'm here to, as a representative of the Cimarron Apartments right across the street, just east of where this proposed ASU building is going to be. And the majority of the east elevation is a major truck service dock. So how is this meeting the goal for pedestrian-focused use on the street? We're kind of worried about that. The loading dock use will have a major negative impact on the apartments across the street, both in terms of street view and noise. I mean, I'm picturing the trucks backing up and that horrible beep, beep, beep. Will there be rules limiting evening and weekend use by these large trucks, and will they be allowed to stay running while they're loading and unloading? The residents are very concerned about noise. And also, is there going to be any kind of buffer as far as landscaping?
Thank you very much. We'll ask our staff members, somebody if you'd like to address those comments for us on how we could deal with the trucks and everything.
Sure, I'd like to invite Jeff McVeigh, our manager of downtown transformation. He's the project manager on this location. He's dealt with most of these issues.
Good morning. No, good evening.
Good afternoon. Good evening.
Good evening, board. Jeff McVeigh, manager of downtown transformation with the city manager's office. First of all, I would like to say we have heard you loud and clear, and it has been my commitment to the Historic Preservation Board from day one that we will present to them and take their input on any solution that has an impact on the historic original library, former IT building, the wavy canopies. That has been something that we've been considering from the initiation of this design from the beginning. We did present it, and there was positive feedback from our Historic Preservation Board members on how we are already starting to think about how we are going to be able to repurpose those canopies and to make them an element that is actually probably more prominent than they are today. Today, they're back of a house. What we're talking about is somehow bringing them front of house so that they actually become something that's more publicly facing. Now, having said that, I'm not going to be the best person to talk about design and site planning, but I will start to do some of the addressing before I invite up our project architects. This is a large building, and every building, as we know, has to have a backup house. Unfortunately, in this case, the best place for a backup house was along Centennial, and it's not actually truly the full backup house. There's an entire Studios backlot, as we're naming it, that goes along the north side of the building that is a dual-purpose pedestrian slash public space that also functions as the loading area for the studios that actually, so the large trucks, the majority of the loading, unloading that you would see likely will come through that studio backlot to these large doors that you would see on the back. They're called elephant doors. If you've ever been to a movie studio, those are the ones that are so big that you can bring an elephant in and out of them. What is on that east side of the building is a service yard, so that's where the solid waste location is going to be, and that's where we will have, I believe it's going to be where students will come to be able to pick up movie equipment that they check out to go out and do remote shoots, things along that line. The intent would not to be, we don't pick up trash late at night. We generally are picking it up early in the day. Considering the location, we're going to probably have to force it to be as early in the day as possible so that we have as little traffic conflicts as possible. The building is far in design, but there's still quite a bit of design that's happening. Screening of that area and how that treats from a pedestrian perspective is a key element of our design and a key consideration that is still being worked through. I'm probably going to have to defer to our project architects to talk about the details of that, but it is a key consideration that we're thinking about from a pedestrian perspective. We know we have to have something like this somewhere on the building, and so what is our best way to deal with it? Moving our curb line, moving the sidewalk, creating more space there so that there is a pedestrian element, creating screen walls that are architecturally integrated into the building so that what you see isn't necessarily the actual backlot. You see more of a architectural screening, and landscaping are ways that we're trying to address it. But given that overview, I'd be happy to ask Diane or Steve from our project team to come up and maybe address it in more specific detail.
That would be great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hello, Madam Chair and members of the board. My name is Diane Jacobs. I'm the local project architect on this project. My company is Holly Street Studio.
And good evening. I'm Steve Cheta with Bullen Swinsky Jackson. We're the architecture team from San Francisco, and we're working together on the project.
So I think Jeff eloquently sort of stated kind of the dilemma that we have doing a full sort of 360-degree project and a very sort of concentrated urban site. One of the things that we've worked closely with on programming the building is to minimize the amount of loading, unloading, and trash generation to a certain extent with how things are operating within the building. Following sort of certain means and methods of practice, the other idea is that that loading zone is screened and enclosed to a certain degree, and that there are traffic pickups or trash pickups and loading and unloading limited to only certain times of the day. The building itself has just begun the design development process. Everything that you've seen to date is really about the size of the bread box. It's a very complicated building with 4 movie studios within an urban site and a large immersion studio, which we could speak to if you like. But beyond that first level, where that will happen, the rest of the building as it would be developed is very much planning to be public facing with possibilities for slight extension so that you can have sort of views into the building and outside of the building. So it is important to hear this. It's probably very useful to get it in the public realm so that we can make sure that as we're developing the program, we do address the neighbors on all sides, especially this east side.
Yeah, and maybe just one thing to add quickly. This is very much on our minds that there is no back to this project. It is in the city. And one of the things that we're doing to be mindful of that is we've actually selected large compactors, which means infrequent pickup, right? So there's not that awkwardness as frequently. And the other is there are roll-down doors in front of those compactors. So in an ordinary state, you actually see a building and not a bunch of refuse.
That's good. I don't know if you can speak to this, or maybe Jeff might come back up, but so will those neighbors have any other opportunities to participate in the design of the building or the activities, the comings and goings of the trucks and such?
In addition to the Planning and Zoning Board's review and approval, I'm assuming approval, of the site plan tonight, there will also be the Design Review Board. So the formal application for Design Review Board is going to be made, I think, next week, with intent to have the first work session in October with a final decision in November. So both of those will be public meetings as well, that the neighbors can also participate and voice their concerns or their feedback on the project.
Okay, great, thank you.
So this hasn't been to design review at all yet?
Chair, Board Member Boyle, we did go to Design Review Board for a very high-level introduction to the project. Knowing the scale of this project, we went not as an agendized submittal, but as a, hey, just so you know, this project's going to be coming forward. So we introduced the concept, the program, and the building to get some really high-level understanding of what's going on. The formal submittal to that is happening next week, and the actual formal design review meetings will happen and start in October.
Did design review make any comments at the time, or was it more just a presentation and comments were coming?
Yes, they did actually make some. They made some comments. There was some concern with the harshness of what we are calling the studio's backlot, and making sure that that's softened in an inviting pedestrian space, because that is. Majority of the time, that's what that space is really going to be. From a building architecture perspective, they were actually very complimentary about the building architecture as they've seen it before. And knowing that there is a lot of detail that is yet to come to the building from what they have seen. That was 8 weeks ago. So there is quite a bit of detail yet to present to them.
Thank you. Any kind of comments? Board Member Crockett?
This is a question either for Tom or Jeff, and I don't recall from the staff report, but is there with regard to some of the concerns about the apartments to the east, is there a good neighbor policy that might be appropriate here in terms of, not having trucks with their motors running, and perhaps some limits on hours of operation, that kind of thing? Is that in there, or has any thought been given to doing something like that to address these concerns?
Chair, Board Member Crockett, specifically, no, we have not had a discussion about good neighbor policy, but I would have no concern with having those discussions and opening up that idea. ASU, as well as the city as the owner of this project, and ASU as the program and then the actual building user. All want to be good neighbors to the surrounding community. So the idea of actually putting down some limitations on when deliveries can happen, or when solid waste is picked up, or how often, that would be, I think, something that we would all agree to work on.
Okay.
And along those lines, I guess of all the neighbors or all the adjacent properties, that's the only one that's residential.
Yes.
And that's the only one that's going to have the trucks coming and the refuse pickup. And so I would recommend that we do, I know it's tough because you can't really put it anywhere else. I mean, I get that, you've got the city buildings to the west and to the kind of southwest. But at the same time, I mean, this is the only side that's residential. So we need to be aware of that and somehow accommodate that, because it's only fair, right?
It's hard when this is our urban center.
Right.
And so we're going to probably face these challenges more often than we would like to. But we just, I think, beg of you, please take these things into consideration. We don't want to chase our residents out of downtown. We want to keep them here.
And I will take it one step further. It's I do agree. Yes, definitely the only residential neighbor to this property. But I will also take it the one step further. Is that Centennial is a street that leads to places as well.
Yes.
And that view shed needs to be it needs to be attractive as well. So those two things together should help us create a solution that isn't going to be, I should say, will be as unoffensive as we possibly can make such an area.
There you go. Thanks. Yes, sir.
Madam Chair, if I could just add one thing by way of comment. I mean, this is an exciting project. I've been waiting to see this come along, and these universities that have come to reside in downtown Mesa are a wonderful asset for us. Benedictine, Wilkes, NAU, MCC, now ASU. This is exciting, and I think this will be a great benefit to all of the neighborhoods in downtown Mesa, including the apartments to the east. And I appreciate what you've done and what the design team has done with the design to try to mitigate to the extent you can the issues of having that loading dock on the east end of the project. And if you can also commit to work with the neighbors to develop a good neighbor policy that takes into account their considerations to try to minimize the impact of the loading that'll happen there, then I'm happy to support this project.
Thank you. Any other comments? Board Member Boyle.
Yeah, let me just go to my, I guess, can we kind of step back and talk about overall things?
Thank
or are we
you,
still being,
Mr. McVeigh, I appreciate
still being specific? So when I saw this project first presented by, I think, the dean of the school that's going to be in charge of this at the West Mesa Business Alliance meeting, and was woefully underwhelmed by the building. This needs to be a shining star. This needs to be redefining how Mesa thinks of itself and what Mesa looks like. To me, when I saw the images there, I thought, well, it looks kind of like the portables. I mean, if you compare it to what's going on at the ASU campus, especially the Phoenix campus, we end up with kind of some big, dull-colored boxes. I don't think that is the caliber. I don't think that is the awesomeness that we want to see in our city to redefine what we're doing as we're trying to revitalize downtown and everything like this. And if anyone's going to love brutalist architecture, it's me. I spent a lot of time in New York, and the Law Library at Columbia is just a jewel of brutalism, if such a thing is possible. But I don't see the wow factor here. If this is a building that we're putting in downtown, and I feel like its caliber needs to be exceptional. When I brought that up with the dean of the school, he said, well, this is all we could afford with the budget and that sort of thing. Those are the kinds of excuses that really concern me as a designer and as an architect. And Design Review has had some thoughts about it. For the caliber of what we need, and here, the other thing I keep saying, I've asked members of City Council and people about this, and they're like, oh, it's going to get better. This is just the first version. It's going to get better. Well, I don't see the getting better part. This looks exactly like the same thing that I saw a month and a half ago at that meeting. And I guess this sort of runs into what Board Member Allen was talking about, the kind of, well, trust us, this is going to get better. Hey, we're going to do great. Just let us go. Vote for us, and it's going to go. And so I have some very distinct concerns about that. Is this building photogenic? Is this building going to be one that the students there are like, hey, this is amazing, you should see this? Or is it kind of like, well, if you want to take pictures, go to the ASU main campus or go to the Phoenix campus. This is sort of a backdrop, a studio lot. And if there's some theories, some architectural theory behind that sort of concept that maybe I haven't heard of because I haven't been into any of the presentations, that's certainly something to be considered. Or if the concept is, well, we're being like Apple and HP, that we're started in a garage, so you don't want to make a great building because artists work better under a great oppression. I could maybe see that. But to me, and where I stand, if we're trying to say, yes, this is the city really doing the best thing they can, I think more about the Arts Center, which is certainly photogenic and surprising and something that brings delight. I think about even the temple, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints right there. When that was built in the 1920s, that was the most cutting-edge building west of the Mississippi. It was right in line with what Frank Lloyd Wright was doing, cutting-edge modern building right there. And it seems like now Mesa's kind of slipped, and I feel like this is not what the city deserves. I feel like we deserve a much more striking, astounding, and feel good about your city doing forward things building here.
Thank you. Oh, yes, sir.
If I may. First, just as a reminder, this is going through a design review board process. And to counter Dean Tepper, ask ASU, this is next to the most expensive building at a cost per square foot of any ASU building out there. It is well over $400 a square foot from a construction cost perspective. So this is not a question of dollars. the program is driving design as much as everything else. This is an extremely unique program that we're working in this building, and it's not a trust me. This is a building that is still being designed today. I left a meeting a little bit early to get here for our study session that was on ASU. I've spent most of my day actually today on ASU meetings. Having our architects trying to convince us of new and innovative design solutions on other things within the building actually this morning. So this is not something where it is a trust me. This is something where we have an amazing architecture team that is working on this building, and I have every confidence that when you see the final product going through design review board, that it is going to get a unanimous vote of the design review board, and that we are going to be proud of this building. And it is going to be something that we are going to want to point people to, and that we are going to stand on that event lawn, and we're going to be looking at that building, and we're going to be doing our selfies with it. Now, I've got my personal opinion in there, professional opinion as well. I can let the architects who are actually designing this building actually maybe address more from a design perspective some of the things that they're working on to help address the concerns about the design and where it's at right now.
Madam Chair and members of the committee, I do appreciate, Mr. Boyle, you're carrying the torch for design and innovation and a wow factor. And I think in that regard, my partners at Bolin Swinsky Jackson and at Holly Street Studio 100% agree with your perspective. What's been challenging about this project is that the program really wants to be in a big open space. We're essentially creating 4 fully functional professional movie studios or production studios and a 3-story high enhanced immersion studio all on an urban site. With that, there's been a lot of sort of technical developments in vibration design, acoustic design, and other kind of audiovisual sort of drivers of this program. We've reconciled budgets, we've done value engineering, we've really focused on getting this program and this plan super efficient and super clean. As a result, the bread box looks pretty quiet and pretty sort of unwow at the moment. And so I guess it is a little bit of a trust us. You can look at our collective portfolios and decide where our values lie in terms of having a positive aesthetic impact on all the communities we serve all around the country. I speak for my national partners, that we were selected not only to solve the technical programmatic issues so that this could be a world-class teaching facility, but also make a beautiful space in your innovation corridor. So having said that, we spent a lot of time on the inside so far.
Yeah, I was going to say, just to add, I think in terms of this design process, because there are a lot of unique spaces in here, and I'm looking at the plan, you can see them. Those are outsized spaces. The scale's a little deceptive. The spaces you're seeing are about 50 by 50 square. So they are, there are these unusual anchors inside this building. There's a triple height enhanced immersion studio that is the anchor of the building. Those studios you were just mentioning, Diane, are each, those are all double height spaces that are these roughly 50 by 50s. So really, unlike other buildings where you would you'd be going back and forth more about out, in. This one really has been driven heavily, and a lot of the energy has been about getting the large pieces in the right places. And I would say that the thing that we're really feeling is right here is high level on the left. You see that multicolored box. Those are the theaters, right? So you very clearly understand as a message that as you approach from the light rail, that there's an outward expression of what's going on inside of that volume, and that volume is clearly expressed. Then next is that slot that you can also see from Main Street that you very clearly know where to go. On the right-hand side, you see a series of spaces that are going off. Those are flexible classroom spaces in the front that actually are deliberately sort of saying, like, things can change here over time. And all of those volumes there are actually lifted off of the ground. That opens it up. It's glass at the bottom, right? And that actually says, please come in. So at the first floor, in addition to those spaces, Diane, you were talking about, we actually have all of the community spaces, right? So we've got the cafe, we've got the community room, we've got the ideation studio. People can see what's going on, the fabrication lab. So, at a high level, we focused first and foremost on getting all the key pieces in the right places. And I think we're feeling really good about that. Where we are now is you're seeing some out-of-date external expression, right? And we'd say that, that's where we've been developing, and it sounds like the show we're seeing today and the show that you might have seen were all about from the same date. So there is fresh material that we will be presenting to the Design Review Board on the 8th of October. And we're excited to share those updates because I think we're feeling much better about the external expression to the community.
One of the key elements that's sort of missing in these kind of outdated renderings is how the plaza itself is being designed and activated. There's half a dozen major activity sort of nodes within that plaza, and we're studying and developing ways that those two can be a little bit more seamless. So the sensibility that the green space in the plaza is actually inviting you and directing you into the building, but also through the building so that it becomes sort of a community passageway, not just sort of a campus building, but actually a way to get a little piece of shade, a little piece of quiet, and then a little piece of lunch as well with the cafe. But, you are correct in sort of stating kind of your perspective of it, if I may say that it's uncooked so far. And we feel really good, as Steve says, about getting this program to finally sort of click and fit. There are many constituents, but Mesa is the first one. And we really need to, make sure and demonstrate that what we're doing is beneficial to all. So stay tuned.
Madam Chair, if I may add to the discussion. So one of the things I'm aware is Tom and Jeff has actually done extensive work with the developer and all those that are involved, and they've been pushing very, very hard to make sure that this building actually is a state-of-the-art. In addition to that, I will add to the comment about design. One of the things I know whenever we have any proposal, staff has really been pushing for any development that comes before the city to make sure that it's of higher quality. And I'm glad that the Planning and Zoning Board is basically asking this, because that's one of the discussions we've been having with the development community. And if you recollect from your last hearing, I think Mr. Brennan Ray actually said one of the things that has to come to an adjustment is because the city has really been pushing forward for high quality. So I just want to put that into the records that we are really with the direction of council, and council has really been very supportive of making sure that we push for high quality. So it's not that we push applications through, we pay attention very much to the quality as well. Thanks.
Thank you.
So I appreciate the work that's been done to date, because I know that this has been yeoman's work in terms of a collaborative effort. The needs of this particular program design, the needs of the city, certainly the needs of the residents, and the extensive outreach that has been conducted. Given that we're here for a site plan review, I think this is wholly appropriate, fully supportive of the project. I don't think you will ever land on a design that's going to please every single constituent just because of the array of stakeholders that are involved in this particular project. Having spent a lot of time downtown, I continue to spend a lot of time downtown. I look forward to seeing what evolves as you take it to design review for some of those specifics. But I'm just super pleased and glad about the energy of it. And just want to acknowledge that because of the array of stakeholders, I know the challenges that are in front of you. And again, I don't think you'll ever land on anything that makes everyone happy, but I'm delighted with what I'm seeing so far and look forward to what comes next. So I'm ready to make a motion.
Can I ask a question real quick? Maybe that's Jeff. Jeff, I know years ago I sat on the design committee for the Mesa Arts Center. Do you have a committee similar to that that's helping you guys? I mean, because you do, like Deanna said, there's lots of different stakeholders. Do you have kind of a committee putting it all together, or is it committee you?
Chair, Board Member Allen, I wouldn't call it a committee because it's not official, but if you came to one of our design team meetings, there is every facet of the city is been represented in some way, shape, or form.
Right.
every department of the city has been involved in one way, shape, or form. ASU has their own design review process that this also has to be approved through. So the Office of the University Architect has been heavily involved, as well as the Office of the President's Office, as well as our great design team as well. So it has been, I would never trust myself to be the arbiter of this. There are many more people that are smarter and involved and been sharing and contributing to this project throughout.
And that wasn't where I was going with it. What I was going with is some of that, I guess, burden, shared among other people, not only the city, but outside sources, and besides the architectural team and different things like that, some of the stakeholders in downtown. I know you've done extensive outreach, and I get all that, but I didn't know if there's a formal kind of a team together that's there to.
There is I would consider it a formal team of ASU staff and city staff that have been leading this charge.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Okay. Do you wanted to respond to our design team, and then maybe we can.
It's still this is going to be great, trust us, and I'm still uncomfortable with that. So, and yes, it's a site plan review, but this is a landmark to the city. This is a higher caliber. This is not just, a standard thing coming in. So I think this board does have a lot of thing in this. And one of my concerns, and this comes from that earlier project, people say, a developer comes in, says, we're going to do this project in Mesa, and Mesa always has to say, well, you need to make it better. And what does that say about our community, that we always have to say, oh, improve this, improve this, improve this, and not the other way around. We're like, hey, we're going to blow your socks off with this amazing building. It's always like, oh, okay, that's nice, but now please make it better. And that might be a larger problem Mesa has with its look or its status. But I feel like that I want to see the wow. I want to see the landmark that this is before I'm comfortable moving forward.
Okay. Is there anyone ready to make a motion?
I move approval of ZON 19-00477 District 4 within the 0 to 100 blocks of East Pepper Place, both sides, the 0 to 100 blocks of East Main Street, north side, the 0 to 100 blocks of East First Street, south side, the 0 to 100 blocks of North Center Street, east side, and the 0 to 100 blocks of North Centennial Way, west side, site plan review. Motion for approval with conditions.
Thank you very much. Do we need to have the revised condition, with the verbiage?
Approval with revised conditions is stated during this hearing.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Madam Chair, I'm happy to second that.
Okay, thank you. Let's go ahead and take a vote. All right, the motion passes, 4 ayes and 1 nay. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. We'll move on to item 4A. This is a case ZON 19-00473 in District 6 within the 3100 block of South East Ridge, located south of Guadalupe, east side of Haas on approximately 4.2 acres. This is a request to rezone from RS6 to RM2 PAD, along with a site plan review to allow for the development of a multi-residence development. And we'll go ahead and consider the related plat as well. The staff planner is Wahid Alam.
Madam Chair and member of the board, I'll make it quick. You heard the presentation downstairs, but here I'll go quickly. So it's ZON 19-00473. It's a rezoning case. I think they're putting the applicant's one. Okay. Still discuss it? Okay. Okay. So that's the vicinity. The project is an infill project in the East Ridge subdivision. It's I'll go here. Rezone from RS6 to RM2 PAD and site plan review, and also it has a companion preliminary plat with it. This request will allow for the development of a multi-residence development. Primarily, this is a site plan that has 36 lots, but they're attached in the middle, so almost like you're seeing 18 large building. So general plan is neighborhood designation, and so this kind of proposed neighborhood suburban, obviously this kind of proposed development is compatible with the general plan. Citizens participation, the applicant has done an extensive citizens participation, and they had a neighborhood meeting on June 19th. So far, I'm told by the applicant also that they haven't received any concern or inquiry other than during the meeting they had. And we as a staff also has not received any concern from the neighbors regarding this project. In summary, this proposal is compatible with general plan and it meets our criteria established in Chapter 6 of the zoning ordinance. Staff recommends approval with condition. I'll be happy to answer any question if you have.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Wahid? If not, we'll go ahead and invite the applicant up.
Chairman, commission member, or board members, my name is Sean Lake, 1744 South Val Vista, here on behalf of Mr. Doug Sweeney, who is the home builder for this project. We appreciate the opportunity to be here before you. It's interesting to look at this site and this infill site and kind of reflect over the years as we've seen a lot of the development occur in this area. I mean, I remember when the mayor went out and drew a line and said the power lines, and everything north of the power lines we can develop and everything south doesn't get developed for residential. Well, everything north of the power lines pretty much developed. And here we are many years later, and we have an infill site. Originally, we represented the East Ridge project when that single-family development was approved, and it developed in and around this area. This site, as you can see, is bounded on the south by the SRP power line, so there's quite a big easement on the south side that will never be developed underneath those power lines. On the east side is an SRP substation, again, that won't be developed. On the north side is the East Ridge single-family subdivision, and on the west side is the East Ridge main collector that leads out to the north to the arterial roadway. As it exists today, there are several buildings that exist on site. It's been used for a lot of different things over the years. Big, we'll call them warehouse buildings in the back and a home. I think at this point the home is gone, has been raised at this point. But it's just kind of sat there while the East Ridge was developed up and around it, and now it's to the point where it's not really works, and the property owner wants to sell it and move on and let something go in there. Here's a picture or a view of the property looking from the west, looking east. You can see those storage buildings on the north side, and you can see that the home is gone where the gated driveway into the site exists. The zoning map currently shows this, the zoning map shows the site as R16, but in and around this area, you can see there's been a lot of development both for R16, RM2, RSL 3.0. Most recently, up along Guadalupe, you recall the RM2 on the southeast corner of Guadalupe and Haas was recently approved, and then the RSL 3.0, which is the Mattamy project, which is currently under development right now, was recently approved as well. Further to the west, you can see the RM2, which is a twin home development that currently exists, and that has the frontage on Haas along the same alignment as this. What they have done is very similar to what we are proposing as a single-family twin home type concept. Here is a layout of the site and how it's proposed. We had a neighborhood meeting and made some changes as a result of that. We also worked with staff extensively in their review and resubmittal process and made changes. We also worked with traffic engineering and made some changes as well. You can see on the north side, Tract E, that street. Let me see if I can get my arrow. Well, you can see how the North Street dips down a little bit. That was done to align with the street on the other side of East Ridge as well. You can see that we designed the site on the north side with significantly deeper yards. The yards on the north side have 22 to 24 foot rear yard setbacks along that side. Now, to put that into perspective, East Ridge was developed with a 20-foot rear yard setback, so we would exceed what they would do in the East Ridge development. The townhome development to the east was approved at 15-foot rear yard setbacks. Again, we're at 22 to 24 along that north edge. And then Mattamy was approved with 10-foot rear yard setbacks for single story and 20 feet for two-story. Again, we're at 22 to 24 feet. We think we've designed an infill site that really fits into the neighborhood. It's single-family twin homes on this challenging site to develop. We think we've tried to really work to address our neighbors on the north side by providing deeper yard setbacks than even than they're required to have, and what has been approved in the area. So we think we've done a good job of trying to address concerns. We had a neighborhood meeting, and the general consensus seemed very, very positive. As we pointed out, we're doing something very similar to what is over on Hawes. So I'll be curious to see what the neighbors have to say here this evening. So with that, we would request your support and reserve time after the neighbors speak to address any questions that we can answer. Thank you.
I just have a question real quick for you. And that is, it could be up to a 44-foot, I guess, separation between buildings, meaning if you're 20-foot setback for the properties to the north, and then if you're separating yours on the south side, at least 24 feet, it could be up to, what, 44 feet between the two buildings, right? Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions of the applicant? Thank you. We'll have you come back after the public comments. So I'll go ahead and open it up to the public. We've got 6 blue cards. You've been here through the whole hearing, so I think you know the drill. So we'll have you come up and state your name and address for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes to share with us any concerns that you have. The first name we have is Lana Shumway.
Hi, Lana Shumway, 3112 South Jocelyn. I live in Eastridge. Something he mentioned, I didn't ever see a notice about the neighborhood hearing, so the first that I saw was when it was posted in the neighborhood, the sign for this meeting. So I actually have talked to a lot of neighbors since I think it was September 6th that it was posted. I know that you guys hear a lot of opposition to things relating to traffic, so I'll start with that one. We're not thrilled about it traffic-wise, and I feel like our concern is a little bit different. This is a half a mile back in the neighborhood along our main neighborhood road before you can even get to it, and that's the main road that runs between 2 parks, and there's no other access point. The twin homes that he mentioned that come off of Hawes, they come directly off of Hawes. Like, there's no other neighborhood that you have to drive through to get to them. This, you would have to, if you lived in this neighborhood, you would have to tell your friends, I live in this development, it's a half a mile down in the middle of Eastridge, and that's how you would get to it. And because there is that SRP section of land, a road can't be built along there to take it out to Hawes. The only way is to get to it from our neighborhood. As I mentioned, there's the 2 parks on either side of the road. Those are like where our bus stop picks up. Those are where we have a lot of kids. We do have occasional nighttime vandalism issues already in those parks, and I do worry with additional homes that aren't part of our HOA that don't contribute, that we would just have more use of those parks by other kids. I know that there's another neighborhood to the east of the freeway that they kind of share their neighborhood road with an apartment complex, and they have a lot of bus issues because Gilbert has a bus shortage, and so they already struggle to fit all the kids in, so I wonder how that would affect. Another concern, as you saw in the chart, there are already several multifamily developments that are coming up right around our neighborhood. There's one coming in at Hawes and Guadalupe. There are the twin homes already. On the east side of the 202, there is a large multifamily complex that is government subsidized. I just feel like that's coming in a lot around our neighborhood. That's kind of an issue that I have with Mesa zoning from the past, and I feel like I don't want it to continue further east. My husband's family grew up near Country Club and Broadway. 70s, 80s, and 90s, they lived there, and a ton of apartment complexes went in, choking that whole area. Country Club is pretty much check cashing stores and pawn shops. There's a halfway house, a homeless shelter. There were probably 10 or 15 apartment complexes that moved in. Despite my husband's family fighting it, neighborhood, they came to the zoning meetings, it was still approved and rezoned. And that is a frustration that I have. I feel like we have to be really picky with our zoning and that we can't allow just more multifamily complexes to kind of crowd around single family neighborhoods, because then property values tend to dip and other things start to change. And I think that really affects people and it makes them want to move to a space where there's less of that. So anyway, those are my main concerns. We might have some other ones, but thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, the next card here, is it Blanca Swanson?
My address is 8951 East Posada Avenue, and I do live in the neighborhood that Lana was talking about, where all the kids from that apartment complex and the kids in the community in Skyline, a lot of issues with the schools being able to transport those kids back and forth from the community to the school, because there is a shortage of buses just in Gilbert in general. And then also, as far as parking, sometimes with those communities that have the shared parkways in their driveway, they don't allow any extra cars to park in that community. So if some of that's gonna be going on in the design, it's gonna cause some of those people to park in that street that Lana is mentioning is the only ingress site. And like she mentioned, there's not gonna be another place for them to put that because of the SRP lock there. Also, she mentioned that there are, I think, 2 communities, the Mattamy home and the Leonard homes that are right there on Guadalupe. Those are still being developed, so if once those get, they're still vacant, most of that, it's still developing. So once people start to move in, it's gonna affect the traffic there. And then, like I said, it's still in the process of being developed. So can we at least wait for that to be done to add another project? And then let's see what else I have in here. Yeah, that was the only notice that we've ever gotten about the program being started. So I don't know where they let the neighborhood know about it. I think this was the first meeting that we've all heard about. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Let's see. Amy, I'm sorry, Amy, I can't make out the name here on Onza Avenue. Would you like to come speak? No, okay. I'm sorry, you says you don't wish to speak. It sounds like maybe. It's okay. Okay, well. I would reiterate what they said. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, we'll just state into the record that you did, submit a card that you're opposed to the item, but you did not wish to speak. Jenny Crandall.
Hi, Jenny Crandall, 8525 East Posada Avenue. I live directly on the street that empties out onto where this would be. The first time I heard anything about this was September 6th when they posted the sign at the very, very end of the street where most of the neighborhood didn't see it. My sister went to the HOA meeting last night and said that almost nobody there had heard anything about it. So when they say that they have done due process, however, of letting us know, I didn't know anything about the meeting in June. That could be my fault. I might have gotten a letter and not seen it. But that was the first that I'd heard. In that time, we have done a lot of talking with neighbors. Not one person we've heard has been in favor of this, mostly because if we're going to develop it in the middle of a single-family home development, let's develop some more single-family homes, not a multifamily home unit where we're already surrounded by them. And I grew up in, that was my sister-in-law, so I was in the neighborhood, Extension and Broadway. That was a great neighborhood growing up, and then within a few years, they built about 7 apartment complexes around us. Everyone moved, and it went down from there. And I feel like that's kind of what's happening here. We're kind of getting choked out with multifamily homes. I realize this is slightly different than an apartment complex, but when you're talking about 30, 35 units, that's at least 70 new cars that will be coming up and down. I mean, if it's most families have 2 cars. That's a lot of traffic coming in when that's the only entrance. I know it's been mentioned about the busing. I think that's a problem, but mostly just the safety of the kids and the excessive amount of traffic in there. I don't think that's necessary. If it's already a single-family home, let's keep it zoned for single-family homes and build maybe 10 homes in there where you get far less traffic. And we already have a problem with people parking all along Eastridge as it is. So I can only see that getting worse. And we have had issues already with vandalism and crime and problems in our neighborhood, and continuing to develop multifamily homes. We already know what happens with that. We've seen it, we've lived through it. So I would say that we're very against this project, especially at the end of my street. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's see. Emily Beardall, you are opposed to this item but do not wish to speak. Is that still true? Okay. And then last card, Al Maloro, but it doesn't say if you're in favor or opposed or you wish to speak or not. So come on up and.
Madam Chair and ladies and gentlemen of the board, my name is Al Maloro, 8602 East Ocasa. And I'm against this development for a particular reason. Rezoning allows 10 pounds of product to go into a 5-pound bag, but we're going to use a designer bag is what we're doing, okay? The whole area is single-family dwelling. Most of the lots are 6,000 to 8,000 square feet. Keep it that way, I'd be happy. And I think the rest of the residents would be happy. So as you know, nobody likes change. But being that said, if the change is in line with the rest of the development in the area, then I think we'll all go along with it. As was mentioned, from Guadalupe to this project, this is about a half a mile. There's no stop signs there. And without traffic control, it's even going to get worse with 36 units, would generate about 59 cars per day in and out. That's a lot more traffic than a lot of us would like to see. I don't know what they're going to be doing with stormwater management. Number one, traffic, as you know, is going to be coming out and it's going to go right into Posada Avenue, or it's going to come up to Ocasa out over to Hawes Avenue. That's where I live. That's why I'm concerned, because we have a problem there now. The recreation area is for our HOA members, okay? There's nothing there for where are their children going to recreate? In our area? I don't think so. Okay. Now, will a development have a homeowners association? That is yet to be said. As far as being notified, as everybody was saying, I never received the notice. And the only reason I knew there was a zoning hearing is I run through the development. I saw it, I took a picture of it. We met at the HOA meeting last night. Our HOA association didn't even get a letter. And I don't know why they didn't receive a letter. They should have received a letter. And if they don't, if it's up to the city, before development goes in, HOA should be the first to be notified in the surrounding areas. They weren't. So with these items that I just brought up, that's why I'm against it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, there's no more blue cards, so go ahead and close the public comment portion. I'd like to invite the applicant back up to speak to the neighbor concerns.
If we could go back to the aerial that was just up there, that would be great. Let me start first on that. Again, I appreciate the opportunity to come back before you. The first statement I want to make, these are not apartments. These are single-family homes. The only difference between, and the only reason why we're having the multifamily zone is because you effectively are taking two single-family homes and pushing them together to have one shared wall. These have two-car garages. These have two-car driveways, carport, and then we've also provided for guest parking within the project. And so these are going to live. These have front yards, backyards. These live and function like single-family homes. And so these are not for rent. These are for sale homes. That was the first point I wanted to make. The issue was brought up regarding traffic. Traffic is, my hands are really tied on that one. The only physical access or legal access for this property is onto East Ridge, which is a collector road that was put down the center of that subdivision. It's a public street. It's designed as a collector. That is the only physical way to access this property. We cannot go south because of the SRPA power lines. And the city's chosen not to punch this street through and have it go to the south. Now, there are some areas in the city where they do punch it through, but the city's chosen not to punch East Ridge, which is a public collector, through to the south. We can't go to the east, and we can't go to the west. So really, it's just to access out to East Ridge. There's not much I can do with that one, but accessing a public collector. Let me read it or clarify, and I'll go back to now if I could switch back to the site plan as there we go. I don't have a pretty color exhibit, but we do have a substantial open amenity in the center of the project. So we will have it, play areas for the kids, grass area for the kids. So we have our own amenities in this site. Those amenities and landscaped areas will be maintained by an HOA that will be set up for this project. Homeowners who live within this project will pay dues, and those dues will go to maintain all of those amenities, landscape, grass, and trees, etc. I'm just going over my part. As far as the notice goes, I don't intentionally not involve anybody. We always just go to the Maricopa County GIS website. We plug in, we identify the parcel, we type in the distance that the city gives us. The county website generates a mailing list. We hand the mailing list to the people who stuff envelopes for us. Happens to be my son. He didn't do anything. And then we just mail them. And so I'm telling you, there's been no intent to not notify people. I'm happy. I have brought my list with me that I can show and talk to people about it. But we notified everybody within the required distance. In fact, we always go farther. That's kind of been our policy for the last 30 years of doing this. So I think it's going to be a great project. It's a single-family living project. These homes are going to be very nice. They're going to have two-car garages, two-car carports. They're going to live and act with front yards and back yards, just like a single-family home. The only difference that we're talking about this and the homes directly to the north is we're taking two homes and making one common wall, but everything else will remain the same. These twin homes are very similar to what currently exists to the east. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant?
Go ahead, Shelley.
I just had one, and it was more of a formality, and that is, I assume that the only fire access that you're getting your public utilities all from East Ridge, right? And it's a collector street from the other neighborhoods, but the main ingress and egress out of that, all those areas would be, what would it be, out to Baseline, right? East Ridge out to Baseline?
Guadalupe.
Oh, Guadalupe, I was thinking Guadalupe was south. I apologize for that. So Guadalupe is to the north, or, yeah, to the north of it. Okay, thank you.
This might be for Sean or maybe for staff. Do buildings like this, and maybe you know because your clients have done others, do they tend to always end up being the owner occupied, or does a percentage of them often go to be renter occupied for this type?
A lot of owner occupied.
And is it 50-50, 75-25? Do you have any data on that, or maybe the staff tend to know which direction these buildings go?
Let me just,
90%. I mean, obviously, we've done several of these projects around town here in Mesa.
let me just do it. He's in the audience, so I don't know that
90%.
people on TV can say here, but Mr. Sweeney has done several projects in Mesa over the last 10 years, and he's indicating they're somewhere around 90% of ownership occupied.
Any other questions? Board Member Crockett?
Good afternoon, Mr. Lake. How much guest parking is there in the project? I think I see 4 parking spaces. Is that it?
That, and then, oh, I wish my eyes were better. We have a 29-foot roadway track, which I think allows parking on one side or not.
That was going to be my next question. If there's on-street parking, if there's some there.
But we do meet the code as far as guest parking for this type of a project.
And as long as I've got the microphone, is there, with regard to the substation that's immediately to the east of you, does that generate noise?
Chairman, board members, I've stood out there and didn't perceive any noise. I think you're going to get more noise coming from the overhead power lines to the south.
Okay. And is there anything being incorporated into the construction of the homes with that in mind, that there may be some line noise from those overhead transmission lines?
Chairman, commission member, board member Crockett, yes. The normal construction standards today are what we would say enhanced 10 years ago. So the standard has come up so that there will be noise attenuation built into these with the windows and the walls and the insulation, yes.
Okay.
I just pulled up your notification map from the citizen participation report. I mean, and if, I don't know, you don't have that probably incorporated into your presentation, but I mean, it looks like, according to this, the county website generated all the homes from all the way over to the freeway, almost all the way over to Haas. And I mean, as far, I can't see the northern boundary, but I mean, that's just.
There we go, right there.
Thank you, that's what I was trying to.
All the homes in red, or the properties outlined in red, are ones that the Maricopa County website generated a mailing address based upon their tax records, and we then put those labels on a letter and mailed it out to them.
I mean, it could be possible. I mean, without having a map and sketching out where these people are in relation to this, we couldn't say, but this is, I mean, the HOA, well, I don't know, I didn't see the mailing, but it looks like relevant people.
I know the mailing went out because we had attendees at the neighborhood meeting who received the mailing.
Yeah. I just wanted to point that out since I saw it in the report. Did anybody else have any comments?
So, great citizen participation report. I appreciate that you go above and beyond. I like seeing the samples. I love seeing all of that. This is going to be very difficult because you have a landlocked and basically a landlocked infill space. Whatever anybody tries to do with this, it's going to be difficult. So I appreciate that you put some thought into what you were putting forth. My issue is the request and change in zoning. I just think it's an awful lot of properties to put in that landlocked spot at the very end of an entire subdivision. And I have issues with the housing type. You can say twin homes, but it's really a duplex. you can finesse tomato, tomato, and we can have that discussion.
Duplex, twin homes,
But
same
it is a duplex, and just given Mesa's history, I'm not comfortable moving forward with that product type. I have seen and worked in neighborhoods over and over again where that housing type does not bode well in terms of long-term sustainability. I can only speak from my personal experience, but since the request for rezoning is in front of us, that's what I'm going to comment on, so I'm not in favor of this.
Thank you. Any other comments for the applicant?
I have and maybe this was in the report and I didn't see it. Why was this skipped over when everything else was built out? Was just some owner had the land and they didn't want to sell till later? Is that?
That is my understanding.
Okay. Because I guess I agree with you. That sort of thing concerns me when you're switching to a multifamily thing, when it's a leftover piece, when it's got a power station here and it's going to have light commercial there. You're kind of pushing it into areas that are challenged over time. I share that concern. If it's true that 90% of these projects end up owner occupied, I think that helps alleviate that concern somewhat. But I certainly have that same concern. And with the people who came and spoke, I still live in that same neighborhood where they grew up, and I've seen the multifamily come in, and I've seen the effect that it has. The Mesa 2040 general plan even states that. It says, look, when you put too much transient housing in an area, it has a very negative effect on the schools. And so that's something, since we're still working against that in that area, that's something that's very concerning to me with switching and saying, okay, well, now we're going to have this and now we're going to have that. So I have a lot of the same concerns you do.
Any questions of the applicant then at this point? Thank you. I think we're good at this point. Board Member Crockett?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I had a question for Wahid. We talked in our study session about quality design elements. I just wanted to get your thoughts on this proposal and whether what you're seeing here represents the type of quality design that we're looking toward the future for.
Sorry. So definitely this is, with the rezoning, they have submitted this in front of us, these elevations, the one on the screen. They incorporated some of our comments, like to upgrade, but there is always room. And that's why one condition of approval says that they have to submit for administrative approval of these products when they are ready to build. This does not approve them, their individual product. This is just a rezoning with the site plan and preliminary plat, but the product has to come in front of us. This certainly has improved elevations on all sides, but there is always room for when we go product detail about materials.
I have one more question for you, Wahid. So could you just, you don't have to go into a long analysis, but I mean, this was your case, and when you were reviewing it, why did you feel that it was compatible and it meets the general plan? You just kind of go through that just real quick, just so that we can.
Yeah, so general plan, definitely it's a neighborhood suburban, so it's home, so we are not talking about clashing. It's a very compatible land use. Zoning also currently is RS6 zoning, as the product was not allowing us to approve through RS6 because of the size of the lot. And on top of it, that's why the request from the applicant was PAD. There is nothing secret. I think the applicant said also in 2006, they represented this same lot with 18 lots in 2006 was approved. We were told that the market did not support it. That's why it never got built. Believe me, from the beginning, from pre-submittal, we have been asking the developer that, is there any way they can build those 16 lot, 18 lot? It will be just blended the way it is rest of the surrounding. But we have to understand also, at least that's how I've been told, and I think there is truth when nobody builds for 10, 15 years on a lot, there is some sense of it. Otherwise, it would have been built. If they could have made money, I'm sure by this time they would have built. And that's why these infill lots are left over. nobody is interested, there is too much issues or whatever, so it's never in the limelight of developers. And then when somebody comes to pencil out their project, they try to say like, we have to change. That's kind of my sense.
Thank you.
Can I, just quick on the garages. I know we've way over talked about garages before, but the garages are the piece of the house that sticks out the furthest, is that right? Or at least on some of these models, and then there's like a little kind of balcony or a little kind of overhead covering that.
Yes, garages are 18 feet setback, so the idea is you can still have 2 more cars outside the garage in your driveway.
Right.
That kind of helps your guest parking and other extra parking, but you still have 2-car garage. And the rest of the house, the livable area, is actually only 10 feet from the street. So yes, that comes out.
Come on up, Mr. Lake, if you.
Wait, so like at least in some of these, it seems like the garage is the furthest thing forward. Is that not right?
No, the livable portion is 10-foot setback. The garage is 18-foot setback. So there's an 8-foot difference. The garage is set back 8 feet behind the livable portion.
So it's kind of like a carport type.
Yeah, but without any cover.
But, yeah, 2-car garage, and then you can pull 2 cars into the driveway.
Right, yeah, I understand that part. I'm just trying to, because isn't there's somewhere in the code that garages have to be certain feet back from the.
Yes.
They are 8 feet.
And sorry, the code says 3 feet, and they already did more than that.
It's hard to show that depth.
Yeah.
on the
Yeah, that's what I'm
elevations.
just trying to see it. It seems like
Yeah, it is hard to see. You just have to
Okay,
go back
just
to
a
the
second.
site plan to.
all right, I'm checking the site plan.
And maybe, I don't know if that's going to make it any easier, but maybe even the detail.
So is that 8 feet right there? Like you look at the site plan, there's that little bump out on the side.
Yes.
That's not 8 feet though.
So you have the livable portion plus the front porch and the entryway that will be 10 feet off of the street.
Right, so the front porch is counting as part of the.
Yes.
As long as there's a front porch, the garage can be
Right.
much further forward. Okay.
Any other questions for Mr. Lake? Yes, sir.
Just one more that, the lots along the northern edge of the property, are those going to have 2-story homes on them?
Yes.
Okay.
That's why we increased the setback along that north edge to
Okay.
22 to 24-foot setback.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Lake. Okay.
Are we ready?
Let's see, are we ready?
Can I just say a few other things while I'm thinking about that, since today is my day of saying a whole lot of extra stuff? I'm working with a developer from Lebanon right now who wants to build a project in Mesa. And so we did a site plan analysis. We said, hey, this is the total number of units you could put in here if we really packed them in. And he says, well, why do you want to pack them in? Like, I want this to be really nice and spacious. I want the views to be good. I want the things to be good. And I thought, oh, you're obviously not from Mesa, you're from Lebanon. Like, you're thinking about this differently. You're not trying to pack in as many units as you possibly can in every single space that you can. And I think our standards are lower than that right now. I think we see ourselves that way, and here's someone with fresh eyes saying, why are you packing it all in? This, to me, again, this feels kind of like packing it in. We can fit more units on this site, so therefore we can make more money on it, and if the quality deteriorates somewhat, that's on the other residents and the people that are there. So this is still, this doesn't seem like the direction that we want the city to go. And when I look at the elevations and think about that presentation we just had about the design guidelines for the city, where we want to be the envy of other communities, I don't feel the envy in this project.
All right, is anybody ready to make a motion?
Well, I guess I just want to make a couple of comments. And one is, I understand that there's a lot of different products that have to be available for folks that want to purchase homes, that want to rent homes, that want to live in Mesa. I understand there's a lot of different ones, different products out there. I know there's some smaller lot, there's larger lot, there's duplex, there's, I guess, fourplex or different things like that. I along with Deanna, I have a hard time with duplex and some of them. I feel like maybe this one might be a little different, and I'm hoping that I, give it the benefit that it is a little bit different than some of the ones that I've been seeing. But I feel like this is an infill lot, and I think if it would have been feasible for a developer to put 16 units on the acreage, they would have done that in, after the recession in 2006, 2007. It would have since then came back and done it. I guess I don't have an issue with a more dense housing product on here, because the majority of that whole site, if you go back to the overall aerial, it shows that most of, I think there's some over there close to Haas that is more of a dense product, but everything else seems to be more of a single family, unless I'm just missing something. But I'm in support of this project, and only because maybe if it was a larger property and more acreage, I probably wouldn't. But it's a small number of units, and it's on a smaller sized lot. I don't seem to, my opinion, I don't feel like there's any problem with this one. I agree with a lot of things that Mr. Boyle is saying, and the product and the location, that we need to expect more. And I think, though, in this instance, from the developer's perspective, at least from the planning's perspective, I think they have expected more as far as the design of it. And for that reason, I'm supporting this project.
Thank you. Anyone ready to make a motion?
Now I'll go forward. I would recommend that we approve ZON, let me make sure I get the right one, 19-00518, District 6, within the 9100 block of East Guadalupe Road on the south side, located west of Ellsworth Road on the south side of Guadalupe Road.
Madam Chair,
Did I read the wrong one?
473.
I was like reading.
Ah, nice, I'm reading the wrong one. Which one are we, we're on, well, there you go.
It's all right.
That doesn't help, right? That doesn't help if I. Do-over, let me rewind. I recommend that we approve ZON 19-00473, District 6, within the 3100 block of Southeast Ridge, east side, located south of Guadalupe Road and east of Haas Road, rezoned from RS6 to RM2 PAD and site plan review. That we recommend approval with conditions.
Would you like to add the companion plat?
Absolutely. Let's do the companion plat of East Ridge Manor, District 6, within the 3100 block of Southeast Ridge, south side, located south of Guadalupe Road and east of Haas Road. It's a preliminary plat that follows along with the previous zoning case.
Thank you. Okay, there is a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
You're seconding the motion. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, then let's go ahead and vote. Interesting. Okay, the motion does not pass. We have 3 nays and 2 ayes. So that is our recommendation to the City Council. The City Council will hear these items. Mr. Apia, when do you think the council will hear this?
I'll defer that to Becky.
It will be introduced on October 21st and action on November 4th.
Okay, so that's the, another opportunity to come out and talk to the city about your feelings on this. What was that? Oh, I'm sorry. Rebecca, could you tell them again the dates?
It will be introduced on October 21st at the council hearing, and then action will be provided on November 4th.
All right, thank you. Mr. Apia, is there any other business today?
And as we discussed, we will be bringing the design guidelines and text amendment on that agenda. That's all I have.
It will be here earlier, 2:30?
2:30?
Yes, we discussed that, but there was no resolution,
Is
so I'll
that
take.
everyone at 2:30? I think it deserves the time. I wish that you could be there with us, Board Member Crockett. Yes, you will not be able to join us. Well,
Okay.
all right. Well, go ahead. I'm sorry. Did you?
That's all I have.
Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn? So moved. Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Everybody vote,
No one ever hesitates to second.
or say aye. Aye.
Just go down.
I think there's all ayes. Okay.